The Cleveland Browns first playoff game, will be on the road against an AFC South opponent. That's what we know. We do know when they're going to play Week 18 in Cincinnati. We'll break that down and a little bit more on your latest Locked On Browns.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things dog pound, LGB, and ELOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, wishing you all a happy new year, and I appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. And if you're not part of the everyday crowd by now, get on a bus, Gus, subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. You are in. Of course, the show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, after yesterday, and of course, yesterday's episode was done before the completion of games, Kansas City Chiefs did hold on to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals season is over. Cincinnati Bengals win the AFC West crown for the 276th straight time. Jokingly, of course. So that leaves the Cleveland Browns to battle the winner of the AFC South. Saturday evening, you will have the Houston Texans traveling to the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, one of those teams looking to win the title. Jacksonville Jaguars do hold the driver's seat. So if they beat the Tennessee Titans on Sunday, the Jacksonville Jaguars will win the AFC South. If not, whoever won Saturday night between Houston and Indianapolis would win the AFC South. Any one of those teams is where the Browns' destination would be, either to Jacksonville, to Houston, where they've already won this season, or to Indianapolis, where they've already won this season. Of course, they did beat Jacksonville at home this year. Week 18 is obviously going to prove pivotal for a lot of teams. You got some very weird scenarios. The Buffalo Bills could find a weird path to where they win the AFC East or possibly don't make the playoffs. However, I do think the Buffalo Bills are going to go in and beat the Miami Dolphins. That'll be the final game of the 2023 regular season on Sunday night. Buffalo is riding a hot streak, more key injuries for the Miami Dolphins. Certainly their showing Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens lacks any inspiration to believe that the Miami Dolphins should beat the Buffalo Bills on Sunday night. So weird scenario for the Buffalo Bills, certainly. And the Miami Dolphins, who have been talked about so much this entire season and so much about possibly being the number one seed in the AFC, could end up going from the number one seed in the AFC to the 6th seed in the AFC. NFL's a really crazy world, right? So what we do know, CBS affiliate will have the Cleveland Browns traveling to Cincinnati on Sunday for their Week 18 matchup. Of course, we all know Week 1, the Cleveland Browns, certainly a much different team then. Beat the Cincinnati Bengals, much different team then as well. Bad weather game. Now, for the Browns, and we're going to get to this here a little bit more in segment 2, just exactly, how do you handle a game like this? For the Browns, 12-5 would be fantastic. It would be just crazy impressive for this team after all they've been through to, finish the season with 12 wins. The other question is, though, this has been a banged up unit all year long. The last thing you want is to add to the injury list at this point. And also you want the opportunity to have hopefully some guys with some rest, go from guys that are going in there and just doing their job to hopefully becoming players that, can be a little bit more dominant with better health, with some rest, some time to allow these nagging injuries to, heal up. Coach Stefanski, and it had been talked about over the weekend that the Browns seemed pretty content as far as, basically just kind of mailing this one in. His words on Monday certainly don't seem to match what we had been told over the weekend. Maybe a change of heart. Again, this is something we'll get to a little bit more in segment 2. But for the Browns, this has been the culmination of a lot of hard work, a lot of effort. People you reach out to who are deeper inside this team, inside this organization, basically inside the inner walls in Berea, continue to talk about this is a team unlike teams they've seen in the past. We all feel that this is a unified team. We all feel that this is a team that's on the same page. You've seen a team that gets along, respects each other, works hard for each other. And that exactly seems to be the MO, that you're getting, the information you get from a lot of people inside that building, that this group is really, really tight. Just have grown to appreciate each other over the past weeks of, this season, certainly going back to the off season, and that's kind of what you were striving for. And, when you bring players in, and we spent so much time talking about, some of the players and, the achievements that these guys have been in other locker rooms, as far as the guys that they brought in this year, Dalvin Tomlinson. This guy was in the playoffs last year with the Minnesota Vikings. Juan Thornhill possesses 2 Super Bowl rings from his Kansas City Chiefs days. Agbanaya Okoronkwo obviously possesses a Super Bowl ring in his time with the Los Angeles Rams. Zadarius Smith has been a playoff performer almost everywhere. Ravens, Packers, Vikings. So no stranger to this time of year. And, getting to, which is now week 19, week 20, et cetera, in the NFL season. When you target guys, who, have been there, done it, bought the t-shirt, so to speak, the mesh and, the cohesion of these guys to what's in the locker room, players like Nick Chubb, certainly players like Myles Garrett, committed players, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, it's just really, really gone very well for this team. And, a win in Cincinnati on Sunday would be fantastic. The realization that the game doesn't mean anything is certainly something to take seriously, because, sometimes the price of a W certainly comes at the cost of certain players missing time. And we know how that goes here for the Cleveland Browns. We go back to obviously the Baltimore Raven game. Deshaun Watson goes 14 for 14, 134 yards in the second half, gets his team a much needed road victory. But unfortunately, that was the last time we saw Deshaun Watson in the 2023 season. And, obviously some great things have happened since then. You win a game, of course, with DTR. You make this acquisition, and bring in Joe Flacco, who's just been white hot here over his last 4 starts. But for the Cleveland Browns, we don't know the full identity yet of who the individual team is. We know which one of 3 it's going to be, but there's still work to be done. And we're going to see what is the best avenue and best approach about getting that work done come Sunday in Cincinnati. Jeff Lloyd, you're the latest Locked On Browns. Nobody go anywhere. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and of course, many, many more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns. Appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and don't get left out. Easy way to join. Subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. We have talked about this, and look, the thought and the premise was over the weekend, that the Browns were maybe going to rest a majority of guys come Sunday. Now, Kevin Stefanski takes to his presser today. And the belief here is one of 2 ways. Coach Stefanski never gives up anything, nor should he. Or is Coach Stefanski going to make the Bengals sweat this out and think about every possible scenario? And who knows if you really need to play the etc. liar's poker here right now. Obviously, the Bengals, they're playing on Sunday for pride. It's certainly interesting because these are terms we've used for the Cleveland Browns for a lot of years in the final week of the regular season matchup. But that's where the Bengals are at. What does this game mean to them? What is the effort level? A team that obviously had so much thought and promise going into the season, and that is not going to come to fruition for this team. This team is, season's over. We know what it's like, Browns fans. We've certainly been there. We will, don't want to go back anytime soon, but you certainly can sympathize. I'm not saying you have to, but you can sympathize. It's what the Cincinnati Bengals are going through. Now, with Kevin Stefanski's words today, now, if you think there's a possibility they would play some guys, you have to understand that the Browns are a very, very analytically driven franchise. They look at the numbers for everything. And yes, playing your players in a meaningless game to close out the regular season does come with some risk. Obviously, more players get injured. Some players that are dinged up get dinged up worse. We all understand that, right? Of course. But teams that shut it down in the final week of the regular season and then try to ramp it back up in a playoff game, numbers don't lie. It doesn't always go very well. And for a team like the Cleveland Browns that are so analytically driven, these are numbers that cannot be ignored. You see these numbers, you understand these numbers, and, it's really, really hard this time of year after these guys have been doing the same thing, 17 games in 18 weeks, then kind of shutting things down and then trying to fire it back up. I'm not saying it's not possible to have this team come out and play the best of their abilities in their first playoff game against an AFC South opponent, but the numbers of sitting players and then lack of success in your first playoff game, they're real numbers. And, basically it's almost a 50-50 split. So there is no right answer. There is no wrong answer. It's the answer that you choose to go with. For the Browns, you going to play Joe Flacco? PJ Walker has started games this year. PJ Walker has won games this year. Are you ready to see PJ Walker play this playoff game for the Cleveland Browns? At least first one. I'm not. You tell me I got to shut down Joe Flacco because I want Joe Flacco. And look, I'm not saying Joe's there yet, but you do have to keep in mind Joe is almost 39 years old, will be 39 here shortly here in January, and just played 5 straight weeks, has played flawless football in my opinion. And look, I may be fudging it by saying flawless. Obviously the turnovers are there and they've been a real amount, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to say, hey, Joe, let's get you, as close back to 100%. Because the one thing we've seen with Joe Flacco is, with the amount of time he was out of the league, Joe, by the time Joe got here and started playing, it's time to the point where a lot of players in the NFL were already taxed, and the wear and tear of an NFL season, has already caught up with a vast majority of the league. So Joe coming in fresh, the age wasn't so much of an issue. You go to that play that led to the Jerome Ford touchdown on Thursday Night Football, whacked in the face, shows enough mobility to get outside, thought he was maybe going to run for it. And then all of a sudden, obviously Jerome finds the open hole, the honey spot, so to speak. Joe gets it to him, but that showed pretty good mobility on Joe's part. Obviously taking a shot anywhere to your head certainly causes a quick, trying to find clarity again. And Joe was quick to do that and obviously get outside and, continue to extend the play, which turned out to be a 50-yard touchdown play. But, look, I do not want to see PJ Walker starting a playoff game. So in no way whatsoever am I comfortable with playing Joe Flacco in this game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Running back wise, I'll probably play everybody. You guys get my thoughts. But here, you got my thoughts yesterday, I should say. But here is, the reality of it. Jerome Ford, had a good week, and he's had some good weeks, certainly had some down weeks. If the Browns are trying to win this game, it's not like Jerome Ford's untouchable. It's not like Kareem Hunt's untouchable. It's not like Pierre Strong's untouchable. Amari Cooper, Coach Stefanski spoke today, like, Amari's trending in the right direction. Does that mean they're going to put him on the field? If you're trying to win this game, and most likely you shouldn't have Elijah Moore on Sunday, you don't have Amari Cooper, you don't have Elijah Moore. All of a sudden, that passing game looks really, really dried up. It really does. And you saw it, obviously, a little bit. David was able to feast early. Elijah was as well. But then once Elijah went out of the game, the passing game was non-existent. It was over with. So you got to understand, if you're going into this game and you're trying to win it, if you're not going to have Elijah, which seems to be a 100% certainty, and you're going to hold Amari out, that's certainly going to drive your passing game. There's no question about that. Offensive line, again, the Browns, what they should do is, they don't have many other tackles. So playing Jerron Christian and James Hubbard, I think they've done as well as possibly can be expected. But they don't really have anyone else to play because you're down to your fourth and fifth offensive tackle. Joel Bitonio certainly banged up this year. I don't know how you play Joel. Michael Dunn is certainly fine to play. Ethan Posick, again, I would sit him. Them, I think Ethan Posick's going to play. Wyatt Teller, I think Wyatt Teller's going to play. So you probably get 485 of your offensive line. And as if this is the Browns who truly, truly want to try and win this game on Sunday. Myles Garrett is untouchable. Myles Garrett cannot play in this game one way, any way whatsoever. He is the absolute Reggie Jackson, straw that stirs the drink on defense. There are pass rushes existing because of Myles Garrett. Zadarius Smith, always banged up. And a lot of credit to him. Alex Wright is your starters. Play Isaiah McGuire. Maybe bring up Lonnie Phelps from the practice squad. I'm more than okay with that. Tomlinson ain't playing. I'm not playing Dalvin Tomlinson. He is by far and away the best defensive tackle the Browns have. Can't put him out there. Just too risky. And he's been very, very integral the last couple of weeks in controlling that interior line, of the line of scrimmage for the defensive side of the ball. Can't play him. Linebacker-wise, I think I'm okay. Me personally, again, I told you I'd sit everybody, but I think, they'd probably be okay with playing JOK. They'd probably be okay with playing Sione. At the cornerback position, maybe they sit Denzel. Maybe Denzel wants the reps. Juan Thornhill, maybe Juan Thornhill doesn't play, but, Juan only had one game back under his belt anyway. Ronnie Hickman has obviously been fantastic. D'Anthony Bell has been, more than we could expect as he took on a bigger role as a starting safety for this team. You have Jerron Harmon, who's obviously looked really, really good and really, really comfortable so far in this Cleveland Browns defense. You think that should only escalate if he has the opportunity for more playing time. Of course, Grant Telpett is a name that could be back for the playoffs. So the Browns have some big decisions to make here, and it should start with, very simply and very easily, are we trying to win the game in Cincinnati? If you're trying to win the game in Cincinnati, in my opinion, there are two untouchable names that cannot play, and that is Joe Flacco, and that is Myles Garrett. If you want to win the game, you can play everybody else and go try and win the game. Again, I don't know the answer to that question. Only the Cleveland Browns do. We're going to get to segment 3 here. Give a lot of love here to some guys that got this team here, and it ain't the big names. It's definitely a lot of the smaller names. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns. Don't go away. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. We are the easiest, most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on a 2 to 6 player stat projection and watch the winnings roll in. You want to play against some of PrizePicks' favorite players, like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz. You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in place even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Jeff Lloyd closing out your latest Locked On Browns. I appreciate each and every one of you that make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. If you're not part of the everyday crowd, we'll make a new plan. Stand, subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show's always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, the Cleveland Browns, when you go through a season with as much adversity, injuries, change, a lot of guys have to step up for a team to end up 11-5, possibility of being 12-5. Obviously, a team that is now headed to the playoffs. And, we can talk about and critique and analyze, because that's what I'm paid to do, Jerron Christian and James Hudson. And no, they're not perfect. And no, they're not playing, at a starter level. But for what these guys have done, forced into action, that first Raven game on the road, and I still remember thinking, Jerron Christian, James Hudson, you're starting tackles. And that led to a win, led to another win. These guys have really, really done a really admirable job for this team. This team would not be where they are right now without them. These guys have done well enough in what they've been asked to do. Credit to them, credit to Bill Callahan, credit to the entire offensive staff, keeping in mind that these players, have to be put in the best position to succeed. You go further down and, Jerome Ford, whether a huge Jerome Ford fan or not, the kid has put up some pretty good numbers this year in what was a really, really difficult situation. Missed most of the summer. I don't even know if anybody remembers that. Suffered a hamstring injury in Philadelphia during the joint practices. So got a late jump start on the season. And there it all of a sudden was, 5.5 quarters into the 2023 season. Nick Chubb was gone. And now all of a sudden you're looking at Jerome Ford and, hey, kid, it's your opportunity. Jerome Ford has had some down moments this year, but has had a lot of positives for a second-year player that was never supposed to get this amount of playing time. Hats off Jerome Ford. An impressive year, too. And certainly somebody that's going to be a part of the Cleveland Browns backfield for the next couple of years. No questions about it. Kareem Hunt, another guy off the couch. 9 touchdowns. 9 touchdowns for this team. Kareem's efforts, the Indianapolis Colts game. Obviously, big touchdown against the Jets on Thursday night. 9 touchdowns for this player this year. A guy who really only wanted to be a Cleveland Brown. Took opportunities somewhere, other places, for meetings. Nothing ever came to fruition. It obviously took the Nick Chubb injury for Nick to get a role. And Nick has shined. And he's really, really done a sharp job for this team. And, again, 9 touchdowns for a guy that was not in the plans and didn't show up till week 3. Very, very impressive effort from Nick Chubb. The defensive side of the ball, Sione Takitaki really, really, with each week gaining and growing the confidence in the rehab knee and just getting better and better. He and JOK have been a great duo down the stretch here. Ton of production, ton of effort, chasing players all over the field, making plays in the backfield, at the line of scrimmage, down the field, sideline to sideline. These guys have really, really, really gotten it done. You get to the safety room and, Ronnie Hickman, PFS top rookie safety for the 2023 season. Not bad for a kid that was undrafted, right? Nice job, Andrew Berry. Nailed that one, huh? D'Anthony Bell, really, really strong here over the last couple of weeks. The addition of bringing in Duron Harmon, obviously a guy with 3 Super Bowl rings. No stranger to late December football. No stranger to January football. So really, really good stuff from Duron Harmon. So really, really impressive from him at this point as well. Really, really got to get a little deeper into it here with, going also, to the defensive line here. Jordan Elliott, obviously getting that vote of confidence from Jim Schwartz. And we heard it every spring for Jordan Elliott, but it's really, really come together here, obviously, in his 4th season here with the Browns. So really, really impressive from him as well. Martin Emerson, Greg Newsome, 2 players that, there was such a question about where the Browns were going to be able to use them. Sometimes, obviously, Denzel Ward being out dictated the playing time. The fact that the Browns were good and had a lot of games dictated the playing time. And you just saw Greg Newsome and Martin Emerson Jr. just absolutely blossom this year for the Browns. 3 strong cornerbacks, a very strong defense. That's going to play well wherever you go in January. Defenses travel, and that is a big, big thing with January football. Again, Happy New Year, everybody. Obviously, a ton of content coming here this week as we close out the regular season, and then obviously full throttle towards the 2023 AFC playoffs starting a week from Saturday. We'll see how the way it all plays out, who the Browns' eventual opponent's going to be. We do know this. It'll be on the road against the AFC South winner. I am Jeff Lloyd, your host here at Locked On Browns, now my 7th season. I appreciate each and every one of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen. Join the everyday crowd by subscribing to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. I want to thank you all for the support this season, the continued support here as we close out the regular season, and the absolute mania that will hopefully be an extended and lengthy Cleveland Browns playoff run in January, and who knows, maybe even into February. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB, honey, LOB. Let's go, Browns.